Mute. Hi guys. On the top of the hour, I'll be continuing on with my Chupacabra lizard man. See you then. Guys, welcome. I'm Carly from Carly's Creative Clay. I hope you've all had a good week. Sorry if there's a bit of rustling going on around me. My husband is my techie guy and he's sorting something out. Right, we have been working on a Chupacabra lizard man. And we got as far as doing the main body and 2 leg stumps on the previous week. Now, off of camera, I've made the leg and I've made an arm. And I've done this so that they're baked and sorted and out the way. So when I start working on the other side, I'm not liable to knock it and put it all out of shape and design. And also it means I can show you what we're going to do before we do it. So I like to start with my legs before I start with my arms. We already had the wire framework or armature, and what I'm going to do is quite a thin leg really compared to some of the more muscular mouths that I have made. And then I've got these scalings along, like tendons along the top of the feet, and some nice little curved claws. The only other thing I've done off screen is poked a bit of wire in the base of the spine that we're going to use to put the towel on. Okay, so again, I'm going to start with legs because I find if you start with arms, when you start to try and sculpt a leg, you're more likely to catch the hand. Whereas once you've done a leg, when you go up to the arms, the legs are stuck right out of the way. That makes sense? So when I sculpted the leg, I weighed out the same amount of clay, so that I know that I'm going to end up with the same size leg as what I have on the first side. It's always harder to do a second hand, foot, leg, any of that sort of stuff, because you're trying to mirror the first. Now, first thing I'm going to do, obviously you condition your clay up, which is needed so that the plasticizers are mixed in. I've done that off of camera because it's boring to watch. I'm just moving this ball up into the top part of the leg, and I'm not bothered that I'm breaking the clay around. What I am trying to make sure is that I'm starting to move it and join it onto the start of its butt that we already got making. And I'm just spreading that raw clay up. Now, I know a lot of polymer clayers say you need to put on some liquid clay before you attach raw clay to baked clay. I've always found that my work slides around and I can't get that nice grip that I can get when I'm just adding the clay. So it's not something I've had success with, so I don't bother. Now, the first thing that I'm paying attention to is getting a decent seal on the top part of that raw clay to the main part of the body. That will allow me to start manipulating the rest of that raw clay without it trying to slide back down again. Now, we've got quite a thick wire, which is useful, but do try to pay attention to the shape that the wire is under this clay, so that you are keeping the wire roughly in the center of the clay. And any scruffy joins, if you possibly can, try and make them either on the back or around the outside to the front line. Along that inner leg, it's harder because you then got to try and get into that gap and smooth out. But I'm just pushing it down because we've got such a sharp bend there. That's what I'm focusing on and then wrapping that clay, making sure it's fully covered, and I've got enough clay in the area before I start trying to smooth any of it out. So yes, it's looking very scruffy, but this is exactly right for me. Right, I'm going to take some of this clay off for the foot and put it back on later, I think. So that is roughly the right shape. Now I've got to do some smoothing in. I've turned that towel up towards the back so that I can get it out of my way. And what I'm doing is I'm using my thumb and I bring it up. I'm just feathering in that join line onto the rest of the body.
Zoomed out as I can be, still a bit off.
Sorry, there we go. Feathering it in like that, and I know it's a slightly different colour, but it's exactly the same clay as I've been working on. It does slightly change colour when you bake, and as you can see, that's a join line between raw clay and baked clay, and you can't see anything there. It does vanish very well, so long as you don't have any hard lines, you get this nice sort of smudged in effect. It vanishes perfectly. Right, I'm gonna need to get some tools to help me with the rest of the shaping, so I'm bringing out my ball tools, and again you can get them all over the internet. If you put ball tools into eBay, Amazon, Etsy, probably a million other craft suppliers, they're pretty cheap and I use them all the time, and they go really small up to some very, very big ones. Let me get one of my bigger ones. That's not even the largest.
It's very cool.
Thank you. I'm on the easy stage. I find bodies easy to make. It's heads and faces that I really struggle with.
Been practicing then?
This week I've been practicing. I've been doing what I really I would say is my weakest point, and that's trying to copy a photo and get the head looking like the actual face in the photo. Oh my goodness, it's frustrating. I think I might actually be old and grey before I turn something out that doesn't look like it's due on spitting image. Keep practicing, that's what I keep telling myself. Practice, 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 and I'll get there. And it's because I'm not actually using tutorials and lessons teaching me how to do it. It's going to take me longer figuring it all out myself. But although I like to do these tutorials, I actually find it very difficult following tutorials when it comes to learning how to sculpt my own work. I find I end up much more confident and with my own style of doing things if I just keep practicing and learning from each bit.
Debbie Castle says, practice makes perfect.
Thank you. Right, I'm trying to fill in this gap here, and if you can see, I'm changing tools because I'm trying to get the right size ball tool, and it does matter, especially on little cracks. You can end up with really odd jaggedy lines if you use a tool that's too small for the space, and if you try and use one that's too big for the space, then it doesn't fit, obviously. So it's good that the ball tools don't come individually. I mean, there are ones that I use more than others. That size, the reason why it's in a pink cover is because I use it so much it broke through the stick and I had to encase it in clay. But I am really glad for all of them. I'm just using the metal side of the ball tool, I actually use that long straight bit more than I use the ball, and just use it to roll in the gap along the seam to help smooth out and make that line vanish and make it look more natural, because that will get in where you can't get your fingers into, which is really important. So I've got that join looking good, I think. Now to get it so that we can shape those thigh muscles so that they look like the other one. Weird little dimply bit there that I need to smooth out. See, you got little cracks like that. Just a bit of raw clay, smooth it out, it's fine. So I have never been able to get that nice back of the leg crease with just my hands alone. So what I do is I start off shaping the front, the knee, and then we'll come in and do the bit behind it after. You will find the top of the thigh has a bit more of a slope down than the back does. It's more of a teardrop if you look at the thigh head on. If that makes sense. But only marginally. It's not a real big crease line. It's just slightly more narrow towards the top there. So that looks more like it at the front, but at the back it's looking not good. So now we need to focus on that. And what I do is, again, it's the side of a ball tool. You can use a cocktail stick, you can use a knitting needle, but they're not as thin as this is. You really need a thin little bit of metal. So before I invested in tools, I did used to raid my house for all manner of things that I can repurpose as tools. And what I'm doing is I'm not just focusing on the crease, I'm rolling it out to get those first lines in, and then coming in from the side and doing the same thing down here. Ooh, we got a bump there. Right. So already that's starting to look more like the back of the leg, except we've got a join along this sideline that we don't want.
Maybe Castle says, about how long does it take to complete a piece?
It depends on the piece. So something like this bear I could do in 20 minutes, half hour if I'm doing it at a relaxed pace. Something like my Sasquatch models, which I've got over in storage at the moment, took many weeks. When I do dragons and individual scales on them, that can take me months, can take me days just to make the individual scales. Right.
Debbie Castle said, wow.
You will come across this in your clay. Can you see there's a little blemish there? And what that is, that's where the metal is just slightly a bit close to the surface of the clay. You've got two options. Either you can go in from the opposite side and just encourage that clay round. And if you see, you'll get a bigger dimple, and you need to smooth that over, but try not to create an air bubble with it. Or you can just get a bit of clay, lay it straight on top, and then smooth it in around the edges. So since I already started folding it over, I'm just going to do that because there's enough clay there. But yeah, no, I might put a bit actually over the top. I'll do that as well. I think trying to move it too much is going to make these legs too close together. So it's like making a little patch. And I'm not bothered about the shape of the patch. What I'm bothered about is making sure those edges are pinched flat rather than a thick legs, it'll make it easier to smooth them in.
So do you need to make sure there's no air?
When you put it down, you're not putting it, let's find that bit again. Where are we?
Inside the knee.
Inside the knee, there, right. When you're laying it down, you start with one side and then roll it into place.
It's hard to see.
So let's do that again. Top edge, here, I'll do it on my hand and then I'll do it in place. So you put it on and then roll it down instead of just getting it and putting it straight down like that. Because putting it straight on, you're more likely to trap air underneath. If you roll it into place, it's pushing the air out the other side, yeah?
Trap air is potential crack, isn't it?
Because it is a potential crack, but not as much as it is with ceramics. What it is though, is you think you've got a bit of clay a few centimetres thick, so that should be really stable. Where in reality, what you've got is something a bit that's a few millimetres thick, which is hollow.
Because you've left air in it.
That's really the big problem of an air bubble. In ceramics, because it's not got the flexibility of polymer clay and the temperatures it goes to in a kiln, when you fire it, any trapped air turns into steam, expands, and your piece, it really dramatically explodes, like proper bang explode, and can take out other stuff in the kiln. I've never had a polymer clay piece take out another thing in the oven, except when it falls over onto something else. And that was because I overloaded the tray and I was a new person and I didn't know about armatures and propping things up and all that sort of jazz. Because your polymer clay goes soft before it goes hard.
It's okay to make mistakes.
So yeah, it's okay to make mistakes when you're new, and I'm still making mistakes. At the moment, my mistakes are all in human face sculpting. And it's fine, I'm enjoying it. I'm finding it frustrating. I know once I get the hang of it some more, I won't find it so frustrating. And I can then enjoy it more. There are a lot of clayers just won't go there. They just stay with animals or plants or whatever. But I'm determined. I'm gonna see it through. I just wish there was someone who actually ran a clay course that I could go to locally and just teach me professionally how to do this. Now, we got the back of that leg looking okay, although I'm still not thrilled about that crease line. Where's my needle tool?
David Castle says the most important thing is to enjoy it.
Yes, you've got to enjoy it, and it's not all about saying I'll enjoy it once I get to master the projects. You've got to enjoy the fact that you're going to make mistakes and that it's going to go wrong, and there are times that what you envision is not what your clay is going to end up like, and that's fine. If you see, I just used the edge of my needle tool just to smooth in that blemish that was under the leg there, like that. I'm just gently stroking. One of the things I practiced very early on was just getting some scrap clay and working out how to control your tools so that you're not messing up your clay. So I did show this in a previous, but I'll show it now. So this is some extra clay. The difference between scoring a line like that, can you see that jagged edge? Yeah. And scoring a line on its side at a shallow angle, and then going over it if you need it to be deeper. The same with rolling. If you need, say I've got a blemish there, I need to smooth that out. If I drag, can you see I'm pulling that into a crack?
David Castle says, yeah.
yeah. If you want to use a side, you're rolling. And that pushes over the blemish without dragging the crack out. How to smooth things down gently. So if you've got a little one, do very, very gentle strokes. Very gentle. Because heavy-handed is something you're used to being. Holding something gently without smushing up the back, even though you're focused on that front bit. These are all skills you're going to need to practice, because they're not going to come naturally to you. But we all actually did practice it. And in 3 or 4 years' time, when I'm able to make photographic level pictures, use pictures to model people, you'll be able to come back and see me saying, at this point, I'm working with frustration. This is a lesson for me to not chuck it out the window sometimes. It really helps with my Buddhism, which, none of these things are good. It's a good way of teaching me tolerance, but there are points, especially yesterday, where I really wanted to throw away what I did. And I'm going to go back to it tomorrow and actually totally reshape it. What I did find useful was I went on to several clay groups that have different level of clayers on it, and post pictures and have people tell me all the things that were wrong with it. And a lot of them were worried that they were going to offend me. And I'm like, no, I actually want to know. You can't spot it sometimes. Sometimes you need someone to say the eyebrows are in the wrong place, the nose is too big, the chin ain't wide enough. You're like, oh yeah.
How do you pick the next piece you want to do?
Right. It depends.
Usually a combination
Usually,
of themes and suggestions.
Yeah. Suggestions, themes, or things I've been talking about. Or I would, at the moment, I'm focusing on specific projects. So on my live stream, I've gone for cryptozoological animals, which is animals that are reported by witnesses and by folktale and legend, but do not actually exist as far as science is concerned. So yeah, Bigfoot, Kraken, lizard men, Mothmen, all that. And the reason why I've gone down that path is a lot of them are humanoid, so I get to experiment with humanoids without there being a definite this is what it looks like, so I can't get it wrong. I can play around and be more creative. Just bringing up a bit of a bump to the back of that leg like that one has. I'm just doing it by pulling up the sides and tapping round. I know I'm not showing it very well, but I will hold it up. But if you push on the clay, you get a bump. So I'm holding by the hill and pushing it up. Yeah. So I'm getting to play around with stuff that I can be more creative with. Also, it's really interesting. America's got a heck of a lot of cryptic animals, and it's been really interesting hearing about them all. I'm still listening to reports on Dogman and Sasquatch. YouTube's got some very, very interesting channels that deal with witness reports. I don't know. My jury's out on those guys, I tell you.
They tend to seem convinced, even if they
yeah. Well, I'm not even certain about the evidence.
Liz says, hello, sorry I'm a bit late.
Hello Liz, it's lovely to have you. I'm just fiddling around with legs and talking about how I'm struggling sculpting humans at the moment. Right. Now, I'm basing these legs kind of kangaroo goaty looking. So what you end up with is quite a pointy back heel and that diagonal line. I think that's the heel of the foot and that's the main part of the foot, and then they're walking up on their toes. I think that's the anatomy of what's going on there. But can you see we got those pretty similar to each other so far, yeah? So now we are really just focusing on that foot, and it looks complicated and actually it's not. I think I've got too much toe there, so I'm going to take off a little more and just shape that into a basic round slipper shape that you would use for most basic feet. Yeah? Now we don't have to focus on the underside because we're going to stand it up on a
Debbie
platform.
Says, I've enjoyed watching today, but I have to run now. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Debbie. Have a great day. I'm just going to pinch out that heel a bit. And what I do is I come in from behind and I just start to pinch around there just to get more of a heel shape. And then I'm going to tap it so that it looks more like that first one, yeah? And use...
Debbie says, you too.
Thank you. Right. I think that looks about right. So now we're going to put these tendons on.
Says, hello.
Hi, Artie Hearty Life. Lovely to have you. So we're up to that stage there. I think that back heel might be chunkier than the other one. So let's come in here and just take some of that clay and thin it out around that ankle a bit. Like this. That does look far more like it, but I am going to smooth in that line so that it doesn't look so artificial. There we are. That looks more like it. So I'm just doing gentle little strokes. So pretty much everything that I made has been petted as part of its making process. So if you ever buy anything or get anything from me, it's had a lot of affection before it comes to you.
Oh.
It does.
Yeah.
Right. The thing is, the leg before I got fiddling with it looked fine. It just didn't look like the first side. So that's always the difficulty with claying, is that you've got to make your second side look like your first side. So I reckon that looks about right to me. What do you reckon, yeah? Make sure you're happy with the leg shape before you go putting the toe lines, tendony things and your claws on. Right, what we're going to do, 3 little balls. Let's put this to one side. I'm going to make sure I stand it up on the bait side. I'm going to use that towel as a prop. There we go. And get my scrap out of the way. 3 little balls, roughly the same size. What we're going to do is we're going to take it so that we've got a tiny little bump at the top. And then a long thin stick. And that stick needs to be pretty thin. Okay, so like that. Take this off, that's excess. So bump with a long stick. Then the bump, we're going to shape it into more of a toe shape. So just rolling it out into a little sort of barrely tic-tac kind of shape with a towel. So basically a green sperm. That's what it looks like, really, isn't it? So we need 3 of those. So again, leave a little bump use your fingers to roll out the stick, and then gently pull it so that the stick goes longer and thinner, like that, roughly the same length, although we're going to trim these down once we get them in place. And the same again on the third one. Now it's important that you shape those toes as well, or you end up with real sort of stubby blobs rather than actual toe shape. So let me just do this last one. There we are. Brilliant. Right, now this is the slightly fiddly bit. I tend to find it easier putting it flat. We're going to line up the bumpy bit along the edge of that little toe, like that. Yeah, and yes, we've got over, that's fine. At the moment we are just concerned we're getting toes pushed on to the front of the foot and having a rough idea of where the little tendons are going to be. So, like so. Whoop, like that. Yeah? Then once you've got them in place, you can come in and trim it either with an X-Acto knife or a needle tool, because they're fine enough. Just taking off at the ankle the extra stick bits. You can measure it before you put them on, but anyone who's been on my channel a lot knows I hate measuring, so I tend to do what I can to avoid it. Right, there you go. I just scraped off the extra. See? Now they look like what they are at the moment, stuck on lines. So it's at this point we're going to go in with one of our fine ball tools, make sure the toes fully stuck down, and just blend in the edge of those bumps and the end near the ankle, so it looks like it's part of the foot rather than stuck on. Does that make sense? I will hold it up to the camera once I've done it. But the motion I'm doing, let's see if I can get my thumb underneath, hold it like this so that you can see. I'm at the very top of the line and then smoothing down towards the rest of the foot. Do you see what I mean? Do the angle. Yeah, and then the same the other side, but I'm using the countertop to make sure I'm not deforming the foot whilst I do it. It's a shame I can't hold the camera down, but I'm literally just doing that, but doing it quickly.
Even if I got a camera in front side.
Yeah, I'll probably be done by then. Now, you can spend ages smoothing out the foot so that you really don't get any of these sort of jaggedy lines that I'm doing, but I find frog feet tend to have quite an unsmooth skin, so I'm not going to smooth it all in properly. I'm going to leave it, can you see it's quite textured is the term, yeah? You can take time with a bigger ball tool and get it so that it's very smooth, and if I was doing hands, that's what I'd be doing, really smooth it in. But I'm leaving it like that. So next thing, I'm going to put some little lines on the toes, and how I'm going to do that is with a felting needle. if you look, let's put you down, a normal needle tool as opposed to a felting needle, which is so much thinner, yeah? And also the shape of a felting needle is actually a triangle, so you get 3 sort of triangular sides.
Why not put the hole in your green block and show us
Yeah.
the shape it quotes?
So let's, it comes out brown because it's clay, but what you can do is when you roll it, let me roll it along, you can see there are little lines because it's actually in a triangle. So those little lines are really good for scratching very, very fine marks. Now all I'm doing is putting it down and rolling it over the tip of the toes a few times, making sure that I'm not cutting these toes off with this. It's very, very gentle. I will hold it up, but if I try and do this off of the counter so that you can see properly, I will chop the toes off. Oop. There we go. Now if you're worried that you just stuck your thing to your counter, what you do is you get a tissue blade. Don't just pull if you think you're going to take the toes off, because it's annoying trying to reattach it. Go in from the heel side and use your blade to release it. Can you see now I've got these little ridges on the toes? Let's see, can you see toe ridges there? Yeah?
The more you move it, the more I have to adjust it.
Oop. That better? Right, like that. So we got toe ridges. So now we need those big old scary claws. Put your guy to one side, you don't want to damage it, and we're looking for some black. Wow, I've done a whole leg in 37 minutes. That's not bad. We don't want much. They're not big claws. It's just a couple of little balls. Like so. Now, what I do, I make sure all the join lines are out so you've got some smooth balls. Then use a glass board or a tile, but you need something smooth, because what you're going to do is roll the tip of the ball into a point like that. Yeah, you can take it a little bit longer than that actually. Yeah, that'll do it. So a bit longer. So again, you're rolling on one side of the ball. I'll bring it up on my hand so it's not the whole ball, one side, and you're rolling, and you can feel it coming out into that nice point. Yeah, third time I do this one on the counter because it's easier than trying to deal with the hairs on the back of my hand. But there we go, 3 claws. Now, to get that nice curve that we got there, if you see, it's all about how you place them. What we're going to do is the end, that flat dot bit, yeah?
We're going red. Can you hold on for a sec? I don't know why our stream is dropping out. It's dropped out completely. Oh, is it picking up? It's picking up again. And we're back.
We're back. Sorry about that, our stream dropped out. So the wider end, the bit that's not got a point, you can see it's got a flat side to that bottom. That flat side you are going to stick to the tip of the toe so that the claw is facing up. So I'll put my foot down, like that. Oops, sorry,
Give
on
me
camera.
Time to focus because
Yeah?
we can see that now.
And you do that with all three before we try and curve them into place. Make sure you've got it stuck down properly. It's really annoying to try and glue claws on after the fact. I would actually argue don't bother trying to glue them back on. You're better off making new ones from some raw clay. So again, where I pushed them down, those toes are stuck to the board, so I'm just freeing them up like that. So now we've got 3 spiky claws like that. Now they're attached, you can then come in, use your fingers and curve that over.
Oh, we've gone red again. On the back.
We're back.
Yeah, just there. Go.
Use your fingers, put your finger underneath, and it's really gentle. You're just curving that claw over and down. Like
Going,
so.
we're flashing red and green. This does not make any sense.
I have no idea what's going on with my internet. Sorry about this if it keeps falling over. So I just tap them and curve them over, and there we are. That's the feet claws done.
Maybe Dad is not.
Yeah. Do you want me to make an arm, or shall we stop since our internet is falling over?
Our internet is
What do you guys want?
going like traffic lights. Liz says, "I've never lost you here," but for me the border's flashing between red and
Yeah,
green.
because our internet keeps flashing showing that it's dropping, but if it's not dropped on your end, shall we go for an arm quickly?
If you like, yeah.
Okay, let's do another. Let's do the arm. Because it's an easy arm because we're not putting in any defined muscles up the top. Again, you get your board clay, which is roughly the right size.
Red again.
And we're pushing it on
Green again.
up to the
Yeah, so Liz and Artie
Top.
have not lost connection. I'm surprised though because on my dashboard it keeps saying it's going red.
I'm glad you guys aren't losing connection. So if we do, I'm really sorry. So again, like with the leg that we just done, we're making sure we got it secure up at the top before we start to mold anything. And again under the armpit, because if you start to try and pull the clay around and you haven't got it firmly connected, it will just slide down your wire and not do what you want it to. So you get your tools in and push it onto that baked clay properly. Remember that foot is not baked. Stop catching the toes. So you've got to be very, very mindful. Right.
Looks like you've got a big air gap in that arm.
What, that little gap's
No, the
there?
other end.
Other end, that, yeah, that's fine. I'll show you how to sort that out in a minute. At the moment, I'm concentrating on making sure it's joined
So you're working from the shoulder
from the shoulder.
down the arm.
Join it on properly. Smooth it in, get it looking right before you start fluffing around with the rest of it. So that's looking far more joined to me. Yeah? Like so. Now we need to get that big scapular bulge. What I do is I get the clay and I'm pinching from where I can see I've allocated that the right amount, and I'm just pushing that over where I want it, smooth it in like so, and put that into place where you want your scapula.
Liz says, "Oh, be constantly breaking off those claws, lol."
Oh god, when I first started, it's even worse than noticing where all the bits are that when you're turning it around, you're holding something from behind and trying to sculpt the front, and you're so focused on what you're sculpting you forget that you're actually smushing the back into your hand. So you look at the back and all the work you just done is all ruined. That's why I do lots of pre-baking. So I've got that lump up for the scapula where I want it. Now we're going to address that air pocket, and what we're going to do is you make a little square from your fingers, so it's all the way around it is covered by fingers, and then you push together in the direction of the hole and join it. So you've pushed air out, you haven't sealed it in. Does that make sense? And you should feel when it's firmly on the wire. It's hard to explain, but you can feel when there's air pockets in your clay. First off, when you start to try and mould and work it, it can feel gravelly. And what that is the edge of the air pocket on the inside rubbing against each other, but not joining because there's air there. So if you feel that gravelly feeling when you're working your clay, it means you have a big old air pocket that you need to stab out.
You say stab out, you mean
Lance, stab at it. By the time you got it, you're so frustrated, it's definitely stabbing, not lancing. And then you just smooth it over. But the other thing I noticed that I needed to do pretty early on was make sure that I've wiggled all the air. So if I made a flat sheet, I give it a little flex, and that pushes the air pockets to the surface so you can see. Then you use your thumb to push them all together into one big air pocket, and then stab that one, and you've only got to smooth over one hole. Whereas
Liz says laughing, rolling on the floor.
yeah, I'm one of these people. I learn by mistakes rather than actually learning by other people's mistakes often. I've got books, I've watched tutorials, and half of the time I look at it and I'm like, I don't get it.
You want to do it to
Yeah, but the moment I start doing it and fiddling with it, I'm like, oh, I see what happened here. Right. Next thing to show you. Say you join on not enough clay. So that's what we've done here, and I did that on purpose. I weighed out too little. You don't have to take off all that arm, but you have got to look at how you join onto that raw clay. So what we're going to do is get the extra clay, push it on so it's in the centre. When it meets up with the clay you've already got, I overlap and join together like that. So I'd rather create a big bunch in there and not worry about its shape, but just worry about its joining. And then once I've sure I got it secured, then I will get rid of any air pockets. I will make it the right shape. But if you haven't got it smudged on properly to your other bit of clay, you're not gonna end up with something structurally stable. So
We've dropped out for me. Now we're back.
we're back. So you can see all that join line, it's smudged on properly, but we've got that big wobbly air pocket there. So same as we did with the other one, we're pinching in an even circle like so until you feel it's properly on the wire. Then we can go in and start looking at making its shape right. Oops, join line there. This is why I always make one arm and leg, bake it, then do the other one, because look how many times I'm tapping this side. It's hard enough to prevent going from the other side, let alone fiddle fiddle fiddle. I do get these crease lines, and it's where I've been moving around on the wire. It's annoying, but you can just smooth them back out. It's very normal. It's something even us who have been working on this sort of thing forever, we still come across these sorts of flaws. And it's up to you whether you end up calling them a feature and leaving them or not. But just a bit of a fiddle round, get that elbow in like this. Then we're down to this arm and into a thinner wrist, and the same sort of bump as we did for the foot. We're going to do the same thing for the hand, little mitten shape. And where I folded it over, I'm just smoothing out those join lines underneath so that it's a stable little smooth mitten, like so. There we are. The only other thing I'm probably going to do to that is just bring out those join lines a little bit more again, because where I've moved the clay round, we've got new lines that look a bit rubbish. And it's the same thing I did with all the rest of it, just going around with the right size ball tool and making it so that it doesn't look like two separate pieces added together. There we are. That looks about right to me. So can you see we've got a scapula in, we've got an arm shape, we're onto the mitten, it's all good, yeah? Other than that join line there, which is going to annoy me. Always have one little blemish that just won't go away. There you go. You will yield clay. There we are. Right, I'm happy with that. Same process as we did with the lines on the feet. I've already knocked that toe so many times back like that. There we go. Right, I'm happy with that. Let's put these hand tendons in and claws. So on its side, 3 little balls again. And next week I'm going to make its tail and its head. And thankfully it's not a human face, it's a lizard's face. Whoop whoop, I can do lizards. So this is going to be no stress. One of these days I'm just going to be kind to myself and go, I'm not going to do humans. That's it. Animals only, or humanoids, and that's it. But there are some amazing people online. Like Polymer clayers. You see them for 10 minutes and they've knocked up something that looks like the photo exactly. And you're like, yeah. One day I'll get there. Right. If you keep these lines too thick, if you don't pull them out thin enough, it looks really odd because you don't have really enough room to get a tool in between to smooth it down. So it just looks like you've got 3 bumps on the hand rather than tendons. So it's worth persevering with pulling these out into little thin strips. And I'm just doing little gentle pulls. And you won't manage this if your clay's not conditioned properly. It will just snap. If it keeps snapping a lot, come back, squidge it a bit, maybe mix a little bit of liquid polymer clay in. But it's a matter of clay consistency. If it's snapping a lot, either that or your hand is jolting and it's making you pull too hard and it come off. Right, so fingers on, same as before, and on this model I'm not focusing so much on the underhand shape. There we go, like this. And again, so long as you got it roughly lined up, we're going to trim all that extra off so it's all good. There we go. Right, so we're deciding where the wrist is. Grab any tool that's got a slicing edge to it, so probably about there. Let's do that. Then I just roll those straight off, like so. That one's a little bit crooked. There we go. That looks better. Right, we're getting there. Home stretch, smoothing those lines, and where you can't put it on the table because it's the hand, use the back of your, use one of your fingers to support when you're smoothing. But trying to do it without supporting it, you're making the job a million times harder for yourself. I'm not doing any heavy push lines. It's really gentle stuff. You're barely touching the clay, just enough to smooth in those join lines, but not enough that you're affecting the shape of the whole hand or anything like that's as drastic as that. But frog hands is a good one to start with if you're getting started in hands, because they're not smooth. You got more ability to actually have a scruffy finish and it looking right. Either that or do old people's hands. I've been told old people are harder to do than younger people, but I find the smooth skin of a young person, it's very hard to get all your things join and all the right clay in the right place and make all the skin look absolutely smooth. Whereas an older person, some of the creases and all that from smoothing out not perfectly, it adds to it, it makes it look like you did it on purpose. So yeah, that's my tip. If you're starting human sculpting, start maybe with a humanoid, because it's harder for anyone to say you got it wrong. Just curving those fingers over a little before I'm going to stick the claws on. So we're at that so far. Yeah? So now put them down and we're doing the little black claws again. But yeah, try and set yourself up for some success. Definitely don't try and sculpt a specific person. Don't try and sculpt someone who's got flawless skin. Maybe go for... Oop, don't do that. Behave yourself. So yeah, it takes time. It takes time and frustration and effort. But each thing you make will hopefully be better than the thing you made before, and you'll get there. So, lastly, we're doing those claws again, same way we did on the feet. So I can do it quick, like so. The other thing you might find, if you've been handling a lot of raw clay, your hands can get sticky and your clay doesn't move as well. So if you're having problems, consider wiping your hands. I'm going to put in those ridges along the fingers like I did on the toes with my
You're off the screen there.
sorry, I'm putting in the ridges with my felting needle on the fingers. There we go. Oop, there we go. Can you see finger ridges? Yeah. And then supporting the fingers, you're going to put the claws onto the tips, making sure it's in the centre and it's firmly stuck. Oop, I'm off screen, I know, because I'm bending up my fingers, so I'm just trying to rectify that. Running out of places to hold here because it's more raw clay than baked clay. And that one on there, and this one on there. You wouldn't think I also have the added problem that I have issues with my depth perception, so I have real problems lining stuff up. I'm just curving those claws under using my thumb on the tip, so like so. Yeah, I reckon he's ready to bake. Now what I do for baking, let's move this out of the way. I went to the pound shop, I got a wire pencil case. I've put some greaseproof paper in the bottom, and what I tend to do, very carefully, put it in so that it's got a frame to stand on.
Evie said, ooh, you was on Facebook now.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook now. My Restream platform has allowed private Facebooks. It still wants to charge a fortune for me to post it on my business rather than my private. Curled a claw under. I filled all of that off of screen. But yes, I tend to rest it either in here or in a glass cup or something to help hold it upright and support it. You can bake it on its back if you want to. You have got risks of there being a shiny patch everywhere that touches the baking tray. You can put it in a pile of cornstarch or use some cotton batting, because so long as it's 100% cotton, the synthetic batting that you can get, it will melt in the oven, but cotton can stand 110. But yeah, work out a good way of propping it, and that's only, you're just going to need to fiddle around for that. But I get this baked, and next week we will do the tail and the head, and then the week after that I'm going to do spots and patterning and a frill down the back and all that sort of thing. So that's the plan for it all. I hope you all have a really good week. If there's anything you would like to see me sculpt in the future, do let me know. Like and share and follow, all that sort of stuff helps me. And I will see you again next Wednesday at the same time. Alright, bye, have a good week.